Welcome to the Jill on Money podcast. It is Wednesday, May 26th, and we are so happy you're joining us. You know, over the last couple of weeks, there's been some gyrations in markets. No, not Bitcoin, which has been fascinating. Mark and I are just watching it day to day. I keep asking him, when are you going to jump in? And he's not sure, but he thinks it has to be starting with a 2, as we like to say in the old trader parlance. It's got to have a 2 handle. So in the 20,000s, Mark might get back in. I've never owned Bitcoin. But the rest of the market seems to be shaking out a little bit, and maybe some concern around inflation. There could be some concern about rising interest rates. There just could be concern that things have gone up so much for so long, we're going to take a breather. So the folks over at CBSN, which is the streaming network for CBS, asked me to come on board and chat with them. So last week I had a great conversation with my pal Anne-Marie Green. She's lovely. We talked about markets and the economy, where things stand. I thought this would be a good little midweek blip for you guys. So here's my segment about markets and the economy from CBSN, the streaming network.
Well, May has been a volatile month for the stock market. This comes amid concerns over inflation and how the Federal Reserve might respond. So joining us now to discuss how to navigate a zigzagging stock market is CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger. Thank you so much for joining us. Jill, Jill, there is the stock market and there's the economy. And sometimes the two tell us about each other, and sometimes they just seem to be working in opposite directions. So I will start with this. How is the economy doing as it rebounds from the pandemic? And what is it telling us about where the markets are heading?
The economy is doing quite well. It expanded at an extraordinarily strong pace as we look at the first quarter reading, a 6.4% annualized pace, huge numbers. And if you look at the full year, most economists believe that we are going to see growth of around 6 to 7% this year. Now, I know it's coming off of a lousy year last year, but that would be the strongest year of growth since the 1980s. So I think the economy is recovering. A little bit of fits and starts in the labor market, but we're going to watch that going forward. So far, so good for 2021 and the overall economy. Now, here's a funny thing. As you note, the economy and the stock market are two different animals. And what is the stock market? The stock market is a bet on where you think companies are going to be making money and how much they can make over the course of a year or maybe a couple of years in the future. It's why the stock market is considered a leading indicator of the economy. It's not the economy. And sometimes these two things, the economy and the stock market, can move in different directions. So the economy is expanding, usually good for the stock market, but the stock market can go down pretty dramatically at any given moment, and it's disjointed from the economy at points.
So Wall Street is worried that inflation could hurt stocks. Should the average investor be worried too?
Well, I think that all of us should worry about inflation. Okay, there's no doubt about it. The cost of everything going up is not good for anyone. So it's not good if you make $15 an hour. It's not good if you're on a fixed income and your prices are going up and while your payments and your income from Social Security is kind of stable. As an investor, inflation is really tricky because what happens with inflation is it erodes the value of your bonds, your safer investments, not safe, but safer. There are, however, some really important concepts here. Even if you think inflation is coming, I don't think you should just abandon every single bond position. What it means is that you've got to be careful about what types of bonds you own, maybe shorter to intermediate term, meaning no 30-year bonds. And maybe when you look at your stock portfolio, you've got to make sure that it is perfectly diversified across lots of different types of stocks. And what we actually know over the long term about inflation and even rising interest rates is that it can hurt in the short term. But over the long term, if you stick to your diversified portfolio, you're going to be okay.
We have heard rumblings about a market correction. So first, just explain what that is and what should investors do in the event that it occurs.
Market corrections, meaning a 10% pullback from what you've just seen, right? So your recent high, you're down 10% from that. They occur all the time. You have to endure bear markets, which are 20% drops. last March, we saw the market drop by 1/3 in 5 weeks. And now look at the recovery in the markets that has occurred. You have to, as an investor, be really steely during these tough times. I'm pretty sure you and I had some hits last year where I was saying, hang on, it's white knuckle time. Please try to make sure that your stock positions are in line with what you can handle risk-wise, but don't just bail out because things go down. The idea that a 10% correction is coming, it's not rocket science. Of course it's coming, but you are not trying to time the market. You are not trying to guess the top, the bottom, when the correction's coming, when the bear market's coming. Again, I sound like a pretty much of a broken record here, but if that diversified portfolio is set up correctly in the beginning, you should not have to worry about the market dropping 10 or 20%. You're a long-term investor, and I know that you've made that pinky swear with yourself not to panic at the bottom and not to pile in when the stock market is rising.
All right, you might want to check out CBSN. You can get it wherever you get all sorts of streaming products. Anyway, you can check it out. But most importantly, if you have a concern, maybe it's about your portfolio and you heard that and you said, I forgot those very golden rules that you talk about. Just send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We would so appreciate it if you could pass along this podcast to somebody you think could benefit from it. I know it's not everybody, but somebody in your life could use a general information, personal finance podcast. If you could do that, we'd be very appreciative. Are we still shilling for comments and ratings, Mark? Mark says this is important. If he says it's important to him, then it's important to me. So if you wouldn't mind, please leave a rating or a review. We would very much appreciate it. We want to thank you so much for listening. We want you to wash your hands. If you are not inoculated, you've got to wear that mask in and out. And even if you just feel weird, wear your mask. My building, you still have to wear masks even no matter what. Maintain your physical distancing, mostly because I don't like when you people take up too much room and get too close to me anyway. So maybe that's a good post-pandemic lesson, like maintain your distance. Don't get on top of people. Try to lift somebody up today. It would really make a big difference. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.